that's no joke. And we are currently using technology, our tools to mainstream the livestock sector and to make it appealing to the younger generation. And I'm sure you notice there's a very serious interest now in the overall agri value chain because of technology. Technology virtually makes agri cool. I used to say that technology excuse my French, technology makes agri sexy to the younger ones. So now back to your question. There are a lot of bottlenecks, there are a lot of challenges, and I'm sure a lot of the panelists will talk about it. But we actually want to zero on something very fundamental that I'm happy that the representative of the Federal Ministry of Agri in the person of the minister and the director from the ministry are here with us. But what I want to point out clearly here is that strip all the side talks and whatever. The main issue that's confronting the typical Nigerian farmer today, the minister mentioned one, which is quite interesting, very important: extension services. Secondly, organize guaranteed offtake to market. Production, I always say production is a no-brainer. I mean, if our rural farmers have a guaranteed access to market and guaranteed offtake, I'm telling you, most Nigerians will prefer to retire back to their villages, of course, subject to security issues, to produce agricultural produce. For instance, I'll give you a little story. A couple of decades ago, Mahatma Gandhi of India created the Indian, pioneered the Indian dairy policy by simply making the Indian child eligible to 1 liter of milk per day. That is the foundation for the dairy revolution in India that you see today. So what we're calling for instance, you can imagine the federal government has the school feeding program. If the public school system in Nigeria, the public school system comes up with a program that gives the Nigerian child 1 liter of milk per week, for instance, per week. And then we organize milk parlors and we organize collection centers based on some parameters. One day, I'm sure you have a dairy farm behind your house because you know you can milk that cow, take it to the milk parlor. That will generally truly revolutionize the industry. Bring that to the food sector or bring that to the livestock sector. You take, for instance, if the federal government now will assure that all federal institutions, all universities, all prisons will consuming livestock from feedlots in a program, feedlots that are sedentary, that are programmed, that are traceable, that are not rustled. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians will go into the beef sector because it's a multi-billion naira industry, which I believe we're going to talk about later. Lagos alone, like we all know, consumes over 6,000 cows a day. We are talking about almost 27 billion naira in a month in consumption alone in Lagos alone. And who does that? Who produces that? Who regulates that? So these are the things that we think government should look into: organizing offtake, guaranteeing offtake. And we are trying as much as possible as private sector participants to push this drive, but there's a limit to what we can do in terms of market access. Now we have a digital platform whereby rural livestock owners can sell their livestock in an organized fashion. We supply them with extension services. We have our community empowerment and education program that we're going around. We have our veterinary doctors in almost 5 states now. We're going to have access to about 75,000 livestock in the next couple of years. We've identified 15,000 households that we're giving extension services. We're taking them credible animal health services to their communities at the moment. So these are some of the things that we're trying to overcome. And all this is powered by technology. So let me not take too much of the time. And I believe some of the participants and the panelists will have a lot of questions to add on what I said, but this is just my response to your question. Thank you, Yewande.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I can see the passion of the livestock industry. Thank you. I want to use this minute to acknowledge and welcome the chairman of the MTN Nigerian board, Dr. Ernest Ndukwe. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Welcome. So I'll go ahead and introduce the panelists before the questions so we can just have a flow and keep going. Our second panelist today is Mr. Saleh. Mr. Saleh, are you with us? Is he on there?
Hello, yes, please.
Okay, I just wanted to share. Mr. Salem Omale, he's the technical advisor on livestock development to Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. He supports the minister in the formulation and implementation of policies and programs. Is involved in policy formulation and implementation on innovative agricultural programs, including the integration of climate-smart agricultural practices into the farming and pastoral system of production. Dr. Saleh, the federal government under the Sustainability Plan launched Agriculture for Food and Job Plan, especially for the micro and smallholder farmers. What technology-based initiative is the government adopting to ensure rapid food production, processing, and distribution in Nigeria? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. You could activate my video. Okay, thanks. Thanks so much. Like the Honorable Minister just mentioned, one of the key priorities of the ministry is to try to reach out as many farming populations within the country. Few years ago, the only medium of communication for mass mobilization or for mass literacy, apart from face-to-face contact, was through the use of the radio, and then later on the television, which has very low level of coverage among rural populations. So the radio has for a very long time remained the major means by which information was relayed to farmers. Happily, in the most recent years, like Alhaji Ibrahim just mentioned, with the coming in of mobile communication networks and its expansion to every nook and cranny of the country, and with increased involvement on young populations, young people who have attended some appreciable level of education, at least up to secondary school level of literacy, with capacity to read written messages, with capacity to use digital communication platforms to access videos and informations, a new opportunity, a new window of reaching out to huge populations of farmers, pastoralists, and other people involved in the agricultural sector along the entire value chain has been opened. And I'm very happy that the MTN is taking up the lead to escalate this opportunity. And we look forward to greater cooperation and synergy, and like the focus of this talk today, greater partnerships, so as to reach out. Under the initiative you just mentioned, the use of digital communication systems have been very central. For example, the registration was online, which implies that the opportunity has been opened to a wider range of stakeholders that could be able to apply to be part of this initiative. We would just imagine what would have happened without the digital communication technologies within the state of lockdown, where physical movements of people was highly restricted. So we can see the opportunities that have been created through these digital platforms. And it is not only with respect to enrollment of participants and the fact that all the information and screening that was done was carried out online without physical contact has enabled a more realistic and rational selection of beneficiaries. Again, many of the payment systems and the other communication systems are done through the digital platforms, which reduce the cost of managing such a huge support base because of this opportunity that the government is capitalizing upon. So overall, we can see that the application of digital technologies was solely responsible for the success recorded so far, although we are still having a lot of teething problems in terms of reach out, in terms of communications, in terms of making the systems highly functional, because these are like the first experiences. The lessons learned will be much more valuable in the future. And I believe that with this experience, we will be able in the forthcoming months and years to come up with more robust, more pragmatic and more efficient agricultural intervention programs that are driven by digital technology, that are driven by innovation, and which will be highly appealing to young populations, thereby addressing some of the huge youth unemployment that we see today, because the old farming practices were not in tandem with the aspirations of many young people. But the application of these digital systems and the improvement along the entire value chains, not only production, but also processing, marketing, and other forms of value addition, will greatly improve the capacity and participation of our young populations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleh. Thank you. Thank you. Our top panelist today is Onyeka Akuma. He's the founder and CEO of FarmCrowdy, Nigeria's first digital agricultural platform with a network of over 182,000 farmers, connecting them with finance, market access, and technical expertise across all 36 states in Nigeria. Prior to FarmCrowdy, he held several top management positions in high-profile organizations such as Travel Better, Jumia, Wakana, and Konga. He was recently appointed to the e-Agric Stakeholders Forum by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and he has also received several local and international awards. Welcome, Onyeka. Onyeka, for farmers and farms within your network, how have you increased their productivity, storage, and access to markets? Can this be scaled to more farms across the state or across the country?
Okay, thanks, Yewande, for having me. I'm excited to be here on this panel. Also, thanks to MTN for having me. Speaking specifically to the question around productivity, storage, and market access, I think for us in FarmCrowdy, what we've done is when we started out our business, we understood that the major problems farmers were facing was access to finance, technical expertise, and then market access. So we focused on access to finance and built what we refer to as a major crowdfunding platform for that. That was in our first year. We moved on from finance to understand that, hey, if you really want to get involved in this value chain, you need to get into core production if you want to understand the farmers completely. And so we then extended our service, moving away from just finance to actually doing the work on the farm. Then we noticed that we needed to get involved in market access and getting the right margins from the farmers. Now that was our journey starting out in FarmCrowdy. And at that time, we had maybe about 16,000 farmers in our network that we were working with. But we noticed very quickly that in order to scale our operation, we had to take a step back. It wasn't just about bringing money and providing market access for us in FarmCrowdy. We wanted to build solutions that we're going to get these farmers to become a lot more productive, to get farmers beyond our own network, to have access to our services driven by technology. So early this year, we redesigned our business, and FarmCrowdy moved away from crowdfunding, moved away from doing core production alone, to now becoming a technology company that is building solutions in the agriculture space. And in doing that, we were able to now extend our service into 6 different areas, but I'll just pick maybe 3 of them for the sake of time. The first one was we rather than dwelling on the crowdfunding model, so we stopped crowdfunding August 2019, last year, and then started focusing on structured finance. So we started accessing monies from whether it is the central bank or it's the DFIs or it's large donor organizations that were looking at working with farmers from a structured finance perspective. That was one. And so we started connecting farmers with money, patient capital beyond what you will get on just a crowdfunding platform. The second thing we did was we provided the farmers with aggregation models. And in the aggregation models, we're able to set up over 100 aggregation points across the country. Each of those aggregation points have the capacity for between 15 metric tons to 30 metric tons of grains. What does an aggregation point do for the farmer? They are powered by technology to make sure that when a farmer has his harvest, he's able to bring his harvest within 2 kilometers from his farm to our aggregation point. And in the aggregation point, we go through the first level of quality assurance to make sure that the item meets the requirement that a buyer wants. We then use our technology to impute this into our system to show that a farmer has provided 1,000 metric tons of rice or 1,000 metric tons of maize in so location. So aggregation points became kiosks for the farmers to bring their harvest to, and then in the season when they are planting, in the aggregation points, they're able to also buy the inputs they need, fertilizer, seed, whatever it is the farmer needs, in those aggregation points close to their farms, within 1 and 2 kilometers from their farms. We also built a trading platform, and if you see, before I get into that, if you see what we've done is everything was driven by technology, right? A trading platform that connects buyers and sellers, and it speaks instructively to what Ibrahim was saying about a major problem where farmers have access to well-structured markets as a big problem for them. We noticed that as well. And so we built what we call Farm Crowdy Trader that allows the buyers to come and make their orders. And currently we have 20,000 metric tons of orders to fulfill in the next 3 months. That buyers across the world have signified interest on our Farm Crowdy Trader platform to say they want to buy these commodities from us. And so we're able to connect these buyers with the farmers that are able to bring their commodities through the Farm Crowdy aggregation channel to make them available for the buyers to take up. Then there's also Farm Crowdy Foods in the retail space. All of these things are driven by technology. And for the sake of time, like I said, I can't go through all our solutions. You can see that on our website. But the most important thing is in scaling this operation across Nigeria and beyond the shores of Nigeria, we see the opportunity to do that because technology is the bedrock of everything we have now built. And so it allows us to replicate our model, not just in Lagos or in Abuja or in Kwara. It allows us to replicate our model in other countries. We're able to set out to build the FC Trader platform in Ghana to get cocoa access from the farmers to the buyers. We're able to build our aggregation model to get kiosks for farmers to get their inputs and sell their harvest. And so this is the opportunity we have created for over 182,000 farmers within our network. And we're quite excited about what we will be doing with them moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erika. Thank you. And to summarize what you're saying, using technology to connect the different stakeholders in the different value chain in the space. Thank you. Our next speaker is Lolo. She is the Deputy General Manager at Large Enterprises, overseeing five business groups of Bank of Industry, namely the Food Processing Group, Agro Processing Group, Engineering and Technology Group, Health and Pharmaceutical Group, and Renewable Energy. She has over 30 years of cognate experience in development banking, which has seen her train at the World Bank, with the World Bank, UNIDO, Galilee Institute in Israel, ILO Training College, Milan, USAID, and various international local agencies. Welcome, Lolo. So Lolo, agribusiness is now seen not just as economically important, but as a critical part of the society. What kind of funding is available to agribusiness startups, and how can business owners prepare themselves to access such funding?
Wow. Good morning once again, and I see this as an opportunity on behalf of Bank of Industry, what we love doing best all the time. Thank you, MTN, for giving us this opportunity. We have always been in partnership anyway with MTN over the time. Bank of Industry, I'm going to talk generally in agriculture and what we do as a finance institution. We've grouped our finances because we know that agriculture is not just cropping the land or tilling the land. Sorry. And sorry, 1 minute. Agriculture, we see it as farming, crop, beekeeping, fishery, forestry, ranching, agricultural chemistry, agricultural communications, and that's where technology has been a key driver. Agricultural loans are for different purposes, and we all know for land purchase, tools, equipment purchase, taking up insurance, maintaining the farms, and the likes. Bank loans for agriculture for us are made simple, easy, fast, and of course timely, because everything about agriculture is time and basically essential. So what we look at and key issues that we have that keeps us driving agriculture in Bank of Industry is that by 2020, we know, 2050, we know that 50% of the urban population, but the rural population will decline significantly because there will be migration. Most farmers are women, so we have a dedicated desk in Bank of Industry for women businesses, and most of them trade in agricultural commodities. Post-COVID-19, we know that there's put of high pressure on the food sustainability and performances. We also know that the population of the world is going to be about 9 billion. And so who is going to feed that population? So we look at opportunities along the value chain. And one of the things we do is to do linkages between the processor, because we have processors, we have manufacturers, we have the farmers. So the linkages are the key things, the synergies that we create between the farmer as well as the offtake. Somebody did mention about the offtake, which is the guaranteed market. So we have linkages, and then in our partnerships with the big players in the industry. We also, in looking at the value chain that we prefer, we look at the benefits. What are those benefits of the value chain? It supports growth. So if it's going to support growth, therefore, it's going to also enhance our portfolio as an institution in terms of our risk assets and in terms of the quality of those risk assets. The key driver areas that are remained untapped. So we look at also opportunities that are also available. The interest rate has to be very attractive, low or competitive interest rates for agriculture because of the risk elements in that sector. So we look at areas of de-risking that agriculture. So our partnership with NISAL also it is very key, and our partnership with Federal Ministry of Agriculture in driving intervention funds that are critical to driving the agricultural value chain are the things we look at. So basically, what keeps us going is that first, as a financial institution, we look at how well prepared the business plans are by the entrepreneurs. And then we believe that we also give advocacy roles. We do capacity buildings because we have business development partners that we work with. Today, we evaluate the market and competitions and the competitors. We define appropriate locations for various industries so that you cannot cite one industry where the raw materials and comparative advantages are not available. The legal frameworks are always very critical that we look at in doing our finances. We align business to regulatory frameworks, and then we also align our operations to the federal government's mandate of industrialization under the NRP. We get appropriate funding. So in the recent, we've gone out to look for funds for agriculture, particularly from African Development Bank, with specific targets and the specific interests and the specific sectors. We look at the assets and liabilities of the owners of the businesses, and then we do the online fast tracking as a business. So for us in Bank of Industry, over the years, I would like to say that we have over 41 41,563 beneficiaries under the agri sector, with a loan base of about 418 billion in the last few years. So, and with SMEs being one of our critical key points of 39.3 billion naira in disbursements. So I'm sure we will have lots of questions and answers, but one of the things that we do in Bank of Industry is to actually to drive agriculture to the next level, using technology, using low finance, using our partnerships that are very vital to our existence as an institution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lolo. Thank you. One of the biggest challenges in this sector is always access to finance. And I'm happy about what you said. To summarize it, linkages between farmers and off-takers process is one of the key factors in accessing these funds, helping de-risk the different value chain in a different segment, capacity building with different partners, and segment financing available. I'm sure you have a lot of questions about accessing this type of finance, so we'll get into it. Thank you. Our next speaker is Shola Ladoja. He's a practical farmer with vast knowledge of greenhouse and open field crop production. Shola is currently a consultant for Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency with the responsibility of creating the Oyo State Agribusiness Policy and Governance Program, Agribusiness Development Program, and Youth in Agribusiness Program to propel the state as a pace setter in modern agriculture in Nigeria. He has received several awards for entrepreneurship in agriculture and was recognized by renowned international experts and Forbes magazine for this dedication to the Nigerian agriculture sector. Welcome, Shola.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to MTN for this great platform to share my insights into agriculture.
Thanks for joining us, Shola. With Simple Green, you own a big part of the value chain, from farming to transporting, processing, and retailing. And this provides some level of security for the business. What kind of investment would startups require to own such a huge part of the agri value chain? And what are the benefits? Please, everyone, please mute your microphone. Thank you.
Okay. I'm first of all going to start by saying it's not been a very simple journey. It's been very tough. Simply Green was founded in 2014 because we saw a gap in the markets when it came to fresh fruits and vegetables, because we saw a lot of things were being imported into Nigeria. So Simply Green decided to take the opportunity to start local production of vegetables and fruits that were commonly imported into Nigeria. Now, in terms of the value chain, Simply Green has decided, or we actually decided a long time ago to actually play a big part in the entire value chain, from farming to processing to transportation to cold storage, because we saw that there was a gap in everything. And for Simply Green to actually function, for us to function correctly, we needed to make sure that all these parts of the value chain were being covered. Now, when I started farming, a big part of my problem was cold storage and cold transportation. We process a lot of our vegetables into bagged veggies, and we saw that during that process, we lost a lot of produce because we couldn't transport them at the right temperature. So we invested in getting our own cold trucks, in our own cold storage. I am not going to pretend that it's something that every startup can do, because it's been very expensive. We've been building this throughout the years. We've had a lot of problems, especially when it comes to funding. So for anyone, a startup coming into this space and wants to capture a part of this value chain, I'm not going to tell you to go through, I am going to tell you to identify the problems which you can actually solve. We have several problems, from transportation, which is still a very big problem right now. A lot of farmers are losing a lot of produce because they can't transport the produce correctly. A lot of farmers are losing money because they cannot store the produce correctly. So the kind of investments needed to be a big player in this field, it's actually a lot of money. I'm not going to pretend that it's been cheap. It's been very expensive. We're still, up to this very present time, we're still looking for money. We're still raising funds. We're still talking to a lot of people on how we can actually raise funds to actually solve some of our problems. We still have problems of storage. Why? Because we don't have proper electricity. I know how much money I spend on diesel a day to store my produce. So for any startup that's coming into this field, I think there are lots of opportunities for everybody to come in and actually make a difference in agriculture. Another part of this value chain that I've seen that has been a very big problem, or there's a very big gap in, is value addition in processing. I'll take, for example, if you go to Mile 12, you see a lot of tomatoes being wasted, a lot of peppers being wasted. What are we going to do about those problems? Now, when people are coming into agriculture, they always just have this mindset of agriculture is just throwing a seed in the ground and it grows and then you sell. I would advise any startup coming into agriculture to actually identify the entire value chain that they're going into, see where they can actually key in and actually create solutions to those problems. For example, Simply Green now, we've identified a very big problem, which it comes to, I'm not going to use the word mechanization, but it comes to using the proper tools when it comes to farming. I'm going to give you an example. I recently created something called a wheel O, which has actually cut down my weeding by almost 70%. What did I do? I looked on YouTube and I just saw that, okay, these are tools that we can create locally. I created those tools and I've actually seen the progress of my farm using these tools. Now, Simply Green has decided that we are going to also go into manufacturing of small tools for local farmers. The tools that we can use that can cut down your weeding, your cold storage. I'm going to give you another example. There's a product called Cobalt, which I found on a farm when I travel out of the country to work on farms for free to learn about what I'm doing. And I was on a small farm in New Jersey, and the lady that owned the farm took me into a cold room. And I walked in there and I saw the cold room being powered by a 1.5 horsepower AC. And I was wondering, how can this, make this place so cold? And she pointed out to a device called Cobalt. You can check out their website. It's called storeitcold.com. Now, this little device basically tricks your AC to thinking it has not reached the temperature it's supposed to get to. There's a thermostat, and you connect the thermostat to the machine, and it warms up the thermostat of the AC to trick it to think it has not gotten to the right temperature being set. Now, these are small things that we can actually do in Nigeria to actually change the game. I mean, if startups look into technology, the right tools for farmers, I think it's going to really be a game changer for startups. And I think startups should stop focusing just on planting. Let's look at the entire value chain. Let's look at transportation. Let's look at storage. Let's look at processing. I think that's where we need to start focusing on. We should stop. I think this is our way of thinking that agriculture, just as I said, throwing seeds in the ground and it just grows. I think that's very old school, and we need to start thinking in this new age we're in. I know I met Mr. Onyeka January this year with Dr. Debo Akonde. And I don't remember if we actually spoke about a lot of things. And you actually came up with the $1 million fund for agribusiness in Oyo State. And I listened to a lot of things you were doing, and I think these are things that we need to start doing in Nigeria as farmers. We need support in a lot of ways. Bank of Industry, me, myself, I am coming to you personally because there are lots of things I think we can talk about in this field. But when it comes to startups, I think we should not just look at the production side, which is just growing crops or livestock. I think we should also look at how can we use technology to actually create a better space for all farmers in this field.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And in addition to the example you gave, it's very important that there are a lot of opportunities in the sector, not just necessary farming or just processes. So that itself is an opportunity for someone listening. But one of the things I wanted to also clarify is since you are involved in a different segment of the sector, but since you're involved in different segment of the sector, do you advise for anyone entering the space to go into the entire value chain or a segment of the value chain? But we'll come back to this. I wanted you to clarify that as well. So we'll go back to Mr. Ibrahim, and we'll just wrap it up so we can get into the Q&A session. We have over 100 questions already, so we'll try as much as possible to get through it. So Mr. Ibrahim, what are the ways in which technology and partnership can help address inadequate storage and post-harvest loss, just like what Shola had mentioned, for farm products in Nigeria?
Thank you, Yewande. I think to make it not to repeat what Shola said, almost all the things that he mentioned are on point. But from our own perspective, what we're trying to do is to actually aggregate consumption. And people are fond of. I used to hearing about aggregating farmers, right? But what we're currently trying to do is to actually aggregate consumption. And how do you aggregate consumption? The digital tools that we're using, the mobile apps that we're using, from our own perspective, we've created mobile apps, and I'm sure my friend and brother Onyeka too has in one of his organizations, they've done quite a lot in that regard, from Crowdy Foods and Meat Hops and stuff. So what Livestock 247 is doing in terms of bridging that gap and enhancing that traffic in the value chain is to link producers and consumers directly by totally eliminating what we call the tyranny of the wholesalers or the tyranny of the retailers. I remember I had a very interesting discussion with my friend Onyeka a couple of months ago where we discussed at this length. This will go in a long way to in terms of agriculture, whether you're in the crop, especially in what Shola is doing regarding fruits and vegetables. If you can aggregate consumption, what do I mean by aggregating consumption? Yewande has a mobile phone. She can pick up a mobile phone and order. Even if it is not delivered to you today, at least you can order that you want it to be delivered in the next couple of days. Or you can, like with our Meat 247 application that we're using now, you can order for your 5 kg of beef via a mobile app. That gives the company an aggregation, and it helps us to identify the farmer. From the aggregation of the consumption through the mobile app that, for instance, we have the capacity to consume, let's say, 1 truck, which is 30 cows per week. It means we will identify farmers now that will be producing farms. The same thing goes with fruits and vegetables. If you have this consumption, or whether it's rice or maize or whatever. So aggregating consumption, because I want to really stick to the theme of this discussion, how do you use technological tools to fast forward this innovation? Aggregating consumption is the fastest way that you can avoid post-harvest losses, because when you do that, you don't even wait until it is harvested. Before the farmer finishes off his harvest, you have already organized the offtake, you know where to take it, and you can just push it into the traffic, into the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And aggregation also helps solve the challenges of post-harvest loss, but also access to market for the smallholder farmers. Thank you. So Dr. Saleh, in order to achieve inclusion and increase productivity within the agriculture sector, there needs to be a large-scale skill development for youth in Nigeria. How do you get youth to get into the sector for it to be more attractive and more profitable? What is the government doing about it? Dr. Saleh, if you're with us, you're muted. Or Oyeka. I'll go ahead to you. Can you give us how do you think we can get more youths into the sector? How can we make it more attractive?
Okay, I think so. One of the things that have drawn, if I'm going to use a cue, right, from the entertainment industry, and I think one of the reasons why you find a lot of youths that want to be musicians is because or musicians or actors or actresses, is because they've found a lot of brand ambassadors in that sector. You find also in the technology space that you find a lot of young people that want to be tech entrepreneurs, that want to be experts in the industry of technology because they found a lot of other young, successful people in that sector. If we're going to truly draw young people, youth, into the agriculture sector, we have to find ways of making millionaires out of youths in the agriculture sector. We have to find ways of making respectable brand ambassadors out of the agriculture sector. Then you will find young people that want to emulate them. You find young people that want to be like them, and they will do things to get into the sector. That's one. Two is we need to change the perspective that agriculture is synonymous with poverty. People have the mindset that, I mean, even when you were, I mean, I'm sure in schools in Nigeria, if I come to you and say, hey, my first degree, I'm going to read agriculture, it would be a sorry case of, oh, maybe you couldn't get into reading something more fancy, and that was all you could do. That mindset has to change from that place of agriculture is a pity game or agriculture is synonymous with poverty. And it all starts with the brand perception and brand management, whether it is from a government perspective or the private sector perspective, that whole bit has to change. And so we need to find a way of showing young people that first you take out the element of making brand ambassadors out of young people, then you show people how they can make money in the agriculture space. And making money in the agriculture space, you need to change that mindset of agriculture is synonymous with hoes and cutlass. I can be a I'm a technology person, right? I spent my time building technology. I spent my time in technology. I went into marketing, worked with startups. I have successfully assembled a team to build a very respectable brand in the agriculture space. We currently have worked with 182,000 people, but I still refer to myself as a technology entrepreneur. And so that mindset shift needs to happen with our youth where they see that I can be using drones. I love using drones. And so I can use drones to provide crop updates from the farm. I can use drones to spray fertilizer on the farm. I can be excited about building servers and building AI for crop production. Someone has done Uber for tractors. That is an exciting model. I can do the same thing using a mobile device. So I think that shift in mindset and then finding new role models that we showcase, new role models that we're able to consistently bring into the limelight. So young people say, if this guy has done this at 21, if this guy has done this at 25, I too can do it. And then the last thing is those that have been successful in the agriculture space need to tell more of their stories about their failures and their success, so that the young people will also see how real it is to get in and then appreciate the energy and the work that comes in and then the impact they can have in people's lives if they get into the sector. So, I mean, if you ask me that question, I think those would be the main things I would highlight that will help young people get more into the agriculture sector.
Thank you very much, Eureka. And I love what you're talking about. Like you are an example yourself. So you're just also changing the narrative and talking about the success stories. Well, I'll go to Lolo. Lolo, I think I wanted to verify access. As I mentioned, access to finance is one of the biggest issues we have. And when it comes to Bank of Industry, one of the key things is linking the farmers to the processors. But are there any kind of informal loan available to farmers that are backed with insurance? Can you let us know about it?
Thank you very much once again. In Nigeria, every organization is actually set up for different purposes. And like I said, Bank of Industry is set up to add value. We're in the value addition space, picking the agro-processing raw materials and adding value to it so that we can get to to the table, at least to the consumers. In that space, we partner with the Bank of Agriculture, which is the main organization set up by the federal government for the cropping. But that said, like I said, I mentioned before that we do value additions, and then we also do value chains. We concentrate on value chains, and we look at the specific value chains. And how do I mean? Looking at the value chains, let's take dairy, for instance. We'll look at the cattle rearers, who are the farmer, the dairy farmer who has cattle. So we fund that aspect of fattening the cattle for whatever purpose, whether for milk production or for meat production, as it were. Then we also fund the aggregators. In funding the aggregators, what do we look at? It's the facilities that we keep the milk fresh over a given period. I'm just giving that as an example of the value chain, which is the simplest one that we do. Then we fund the chilling plants to keep the milk in the right state. And then the milk processors also, as to before they get to the market. Yes, I like what Bayanka actually also said. In Bank of Industry, we defined various layers of funding, from the micro to MSMEs, to SMEs, and then to large corporates. Because oftentimes the SMEs also consider themselves too large to go for micro loans, and the macro loans consider themselves too small to access the SME loans, simply because of few basic things: the capacity, the collateral, the capital that they require. So oftentimes our guide is, how much loan do you actually need? When do you need it? When can you obtain it, or where can you obtain it, and how can you repay? The moment we align the cash flows to the businesses, then we're good to go. And that's where the business development partners are also coming to go into the nitty-gritty of analyzing these accounts before they get to Bank of Industry. So in BOI, as we are, there are stratas of loans for each person. And that's where we also go out in partnership with even the state governments in various locations, looking at comparative advantage areas. If we partner with a state government where we know we have predominantly huge raw materials for processing, we concentrate on all those. Yes, as often as we do that, what happens are the interest rates are low, because sometimes as low as 0% from some state governments, as low as 5%. So our loans are subject to sources of funds that we have. But suffice to mention that we have the Graduate Enterprise Entrepreneurship Funds, we have the Youth Entrepreneurship Funds. So like I said, it is graduated from, but the linkages are such that we attach each agro processor to an off-taker. So that gives us the guarantee that the produce are taken, the loans are well repaid, and that, of course, the resources are well harnessed. So there are a chain of interventions that Bank of Industry has backed upon over the years, and is working and is sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lolo. And one of the key things you also mentioned, which a lot of stakeholders in the industry actually do, we keep complaining about access to finance, but people don't have their books together. So cash flow is very important to be able to access this. And there are different segments of the financing available to stakeholders. But to round it up, before we get into the Q&A session, I want to speak to Shola. Shola, could you tell us how technology can enhance production? But most importantly, I wanted you to also clarify, if I was a stakeholder looking to invest in the sector, is it advisable to get into the whole value chain or start up with one part of the value chain?
All right, thank you again, Yewande. Going back to the previous question, from my point of view, I would not advise people to go into the entire value chain. I would ask that people actually focus on one part of the value chain. That's what I would focus on. I feel like if we have more targeted solutions for specific problems in this value chain, then I feel things would actually get solved faster. So my advice, that's my advice, is let's actually focus on specific, look at specific areas in the value chain which you can actually contribute to. Now, to your new question, how can technology increase productivity? I'll give you a few examples of what I have done, and it's really changed a lot of things for me. I talked about my cold storage. The device I'm using, I think it cost me $250, and if I'm supposed to build that size of cold room in Nigeria, if I'm going to use the normal compressors, I think I'm going to use minimum of a 6 horsepower compressor. And that's actually going to cost me nothing less than 2 million naira. But with construction of my own cold room using technology, I think I constructed a cold room of 8 feet by 8 feet for less than 1 million naira. So, but that's because I was able to use the right technology to create this cold room. I'm going to give you another example, is my drip irrigation system that I use. My drip irrigation system I use has actually cut down a lot for me in terms of powering my pumps to water. We changed from sprinklers to drip irrigation, and we've seen that that has actually dropped our cost of using diesel or petrol to power the pumps. Another way we've used technology is
I think we lost Shola there for a minute. Yeah, we lost Shola. So one thing I would like to say about Shola is, hello?
I'm back. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
back, right?
Shola.
Okay, so now when we're drying our vegetables after washing them and disinfecting them, I was able to use a simple technology to actually create this process. A salad spinner normally now goes for a minimum of $5,000. My salad spinner cost me 25,000 naira. Now that's because I was able to use the right technology. And how can I use the right? It's by different types of research, looking for how I can use something locally available and tweaking it around to increase my productivity. So I'll tell you that technology, using the right technology, has actually changed the game for me.
Thank you very much, Shola. Shola is one person in the sector I know that builds literally everything on its own instead of buying the stuff. So he's greenhouse, everything. So if you have any questions for Shola, please get in touch with him. It will let you know how cost effective it is. Shola. So we're going to the Q&A session now. We have over 100 questions. So I want to ask the panelists to please try to answer some of the questions if you can on the Q&A session. That would be great. So we'll try to get through some of it. My first question is from Tezo Abatio. We understand that mechanization is the way forward for the agriculture sector. Individuals cannot afford this equipment, thus the intervention of the government schemes have come up with early dispensation and have either failed or underachieved. How do we get it right with some old methods? I think that's specifically for the government, but also is one of the key things Shola had mentioned. So Shola, would you like to talk on that?
Yes, I will. Now, we talk about mechanization, but I agree that it's been very expensive. I was able to benefit from the federal government a few years ago through the tractor leasing scheme under Minister Auduobe. Yeah, I was able to benefit from that. But I've also seen that now I don't use my tractors a lot again. I was able to create some simple tools, which I would share a link, a YouTube link of a cultivator that I created. Well, I didn't create it. I saw it created and I decided to also do the same thing. And I've seen that when I shape my beds now, instead of using my tractor or my plow or something to actually till the land again, I actually use a manual cultivator, which actually saves me time. It saves me money. It protects my soil. So there are lots of things that we can also use. They're small tools. I spoke about tools before. If we start looking at production of locally manufactured tools, I specifically will talk about this cultivator, because you don't need a tractor if you're going to go on a small scale. If you're doing vegetables, you don't need a tractor anymore. I can assure you that you don't need a tractor if you're going to do 1 hectare of vegetables. People might look at 1 hectare as a very small size. It's not small. If you're going to grow 1 hectare of lettuce, that's a lot of lettuce. So now I've seen that if I'm going to cultivate on a certain plot now, I don't even think about my tractors again. So I think there are new ways of actually mechanizing our farms without specifically talking about tractors. Now, I'm just talking in terms of on a small scale, but on a larger scale, I agree that we need big machineries, tractors, plows, ridges, and arrows to actually do all these things. But let's also focus on the small tools that we can actually use to actually mechanize our farms. I'm not going to advise any farmer to start buying tractors. How much are you going to use to actually buy a tractor? When are you going to even start from? So let's look at small things we can use, small tools, using technology to create the right ways to farm without specifically always waiting for that tractor to come, because that tractor may never come now. So yeah.
Thank you, Shola. Thank you. And if you need access to getting such equipment, we can meet with Madam Lolo over here to help us access finance to get it. The next section is from Jamilu Sani, and this is for Mr. Ibrahim. Is there any programs or training in your organization on livestock which is available for participants to participate?
Yeah, we have a lot of programs going on. Like I mentioned, we have what we call CELO, Community Empowerment and Education of Livestock Owners. It's currently going on in about 5 states across the country. And we also have a lot of online tools that the questioner could access effortlessly. He could just go to livestock247.com and click on our blog, or follow us at livestock247ng on all social media platforms. And there are a lot of YouTube videos that our team, we post on I think on a weekly basis. We have different on different topics, different educational topics. Like I mentioned earlier, what we are trying to do is to use technology to really mainstream the livestock sector. And on that note, I also want to emphasize on something, not just basically mainstreaming, but de-ethnicizing the livestock sector, because there's this what we were discussing before the call, this default mode. Anybody that's talking about livestock now, before Livestock 247 and what other agri-tech platforms are doing, there's this default setting that when you say livestock, the first thing that comes to your mind is, call that mala for me. Livestock is a business, and that's what we're trying to do. Livestock is a multi-billion naira business. Like I said, Lagos alone consumes about 27 billion naira of meat in a month. The cow does not understand English, Yoruba, Hausa, Urubu, Igbo. All he needs is tender love and care, as in food, fodder, water, and veterinary care. And when you decode that, you are in a big business. So what we're doing is de-ethnicizing and mainstreaming. The poultry business in the 70s and 80s when we were growing up was basically a Yoruba elite in the universities. When we were growing up, when you go to the university, you see them with poultry farms. President Obasanjo single-handedly mainstreamed the poultry business, and it went global. It's a multi-billion-dollar business now in Nigeria. Everybody is doing mainstream. There's no any ethnic coloration in poultry. But when you talk about cow, whether it's from the governmental side, if the government is trying to come up with policies, there's rejection, there's hate, there's contempt, there's so much conspiracy around development in the livestock sector. So the government needs to also invest in this, to demystify all these myths, to make Nigerians see this as big business. The minister talked about 5 million liters of milk. If we can all eat meat and drink milk, for God's sake, we should all produce milk and produce meat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. The next question is from Umar Liyasu, and this is for the government. The next 2 questions, so I'll take that. So Dr. Saleh, please, you answer that for us. On the Agri for Food program of the federal government, some of us were enrolled since July when farming was at the planting stage. Right now, we are preparing for harvest and we're yet to get any feedback. So they have no, can you give us any updates on that? The next one is also, are there any support for government for fish farmers? Dr. Sally, are you with us? Can you unmute yourself if you're with us?
Okay. Thank you very much for the discussions. And possibly before I just respond to these two immediate questions, there was an earlier question relating to mechanization. And I think what the response by one of our panelists was very apt. It's very important to focus on small tools, looking at the scale of your production. And today there are many variants of such simple tools that contribute in easing labor and increasing productivity and quality of products. But relating to the large scale farmers and then the need for large farm equipments and machineries, like the Honorable Minister earlier mentioned, the federal government is vigorously pursuing the implementation of the Green Imperative Program, which is largely a technology-driven intervention that will lead to higher level of mechanization within the agricultural sector. And happily, by design, the private sector will be strong players. In the past, it was mainly managed by the public sector. You find tractors and huge equipment purchased and managed by the ADPs, the agricultural development projects, the ministries, and there was a lot of inefficiency and poor maintenance of this equipment. Therefore, their functionality and contributions were quite very low. Under the present arrangement of the Green Imperative, about 780 service centers will be developed throughout the country. And I think that will address the question with respect to access. That means within these 780 service centers, leasing arrangements with farmers will be organized, and it will all be led by the private sector with huge support by government in terms of guarantees, in terms of quality, and in terms of supporting access and distribution. So I think once this is implemented, it will help in addressing this challenge. Regarding the two questions, the Agri for Food program, many young people have been enrolled. Some have already begun to get some of the benefits, but most of these programs, like I earlier said, this is the first time we are developing some of these online platforms, and there are a lot of challenges which are teething problems. But most of these challenges have now been addressed, and I believe that the beneficiaries will begin to enjoy the contributions from the Agri for Food program soonest. It is sad that the farming season, especially those targeting rain-fed agriculture, is coming to an end. But we do believe that for those that will also go into irrigation, we'll find it much valuable. And we will also discuss about upscaling it into the next farming season for those who it might be very late if they are only rain-fed farmers. Fisheries, again, just like dairy, the federal ministry is contemplating ban on the importation of fish very soon into the country. And therefore, fish and livestock is among the
I think we lost Dr. Saleh. So I'll go to the next question. The next question is from Maman Mohammed. What are the best technology-driven strategies to adopt or improve our farming outputs, such as animal rearing and crop production? I'll let Oyeka answer that. What are the best technologies available to increase crop production?
Okay, the best technologies to increase crop production. When you speak about crop production, the first thing you will look at is, so crop production, I guess this person is speaking from crop. Is it crop or animal production? Which of them?
Crop and animal production.
Oh, crop and animal. Okay. So let me start with crop. For the crop angle, I think last time is a major.
So 1 minute, please. Can everybody mute there for mute themselves, please? Please mute yourself.
Okay. So for crop production, the first thing you will look at is how do you prepare your land for the activity that you want to engage in. And so that land preparation phase, you want to do the soil test, you want to till the ground, you want to get the land prepared. You need some form of mechanization, access to the, for instance, for mechanization, we have used Traxi and Hello Tractor in Farm Crowdy to get access to tractors to prepare our land. We've been able to use sensors on the field to check the topography, to check the soil type, to know that it's stuff we can use to provide ourselves with the maximum yield we can get from the soil. We've also used technologies to identify input providers. And so in input providers, we found people that are able to give us the best of fertilizer that fits, the best of seeds that fits. In now planting, depending on whether it's rain-fed planting or dry season farming, dry season planting, you may want to pay attention to the irrigation. If it's dry season, closeness to water body is very important, and then having some form of irrigation tools are very important. It's a bit expensive to set out to build irrigation tools, and that's why I like also what Shola was saying about how he's able to build very low cost inputs for his farms. But because irrigation, I mean, it's quite expensive when you get the sprinklers and you're putting it across 200 hectares of farmland. Once you're done planting, monitoring the farms. For us, we've used Beat Drone to do some crop monitoring to get feeds that we're able to get to those that have maybe sponsored the farm. We've also seen a use case where we can use them to also spray fertilizer, to spray herbicides on the farm. And then in harvesting, if you use mechanization for planting, ideally you use mechanization for harvesting. And so you would engage the services of also a Hello Tractor, a Traxi to get the right tractors to the site to farm. Now, at the end of this is where you're now getting access to sell what you produce. For us, we built our own trading platform to be able to get the orders from buyers and then get our farmers as sellers to list their harvest in our aggregation centers so that our platform, our Farm Crowdy Trader platform, can now connect the farmers with the buyers. Now, for animal production, on the other hand, the likes of Livestock 247 have been very key partners for us. We've been able to work with them on how we identify the livestock, the farms we work with. The cattle we buy. They have what you call GSM chips that they've incorporated into their model, which was built with MTN, to be able to track the bulls that you're going to be investing in, maybe fattening in the different locations that you need to work with them on. And then to make sure that the bull you're fattening in Kanu is the same bull that you're able to either slaughter in Kanu, which is cheaper, and then move the carcass to Lagos to sell, or you're moving the bull to Lagos to slaughter, and you're able to make sure that that is the bull that you were investing in from day one. So there are technologies that Livestock 247 have used also in the animal area, especially for beef production. I don't know if that helps with answering just some of the technologies we personally have used in Farm Crowdy. Where we don't see technologies to use, we end up building our own technology to support whatever venture it is we're doing or any part of the value chain we want to engage in. So, Yewande?
Thank you, Yuka. Shola would like to add to that as well. Shola?
Okay.
Okay, I agree with what Mr. Onyeka said, but I would also like to, I don't like focusing on just, big farmers. I also like to talk about small farmers because a mistake lots of people make is that small farmers cannot make money. Small farmers can make money when you add value to your produce. As farmers, as small scale farmers, I would personally tell you that the money is not in actually in the primary production, which is growing. The money is in value addition. What do you do with this produce? Someone gave me an advice a long time ago. Never make your finished product someone else's raw material. So it means I'm not adding value across the chain. When it comes to animal production, most people don't know this, but I have 200 and something cows. I've done milk production. We are still doing milk production, but now we're focusing on actually fattening of bulls. What we do is that we take 50 bulls a year, put them in a shed, we wean them at 3 months, and then we give them compounded feed, which we get from places like Nigerian breweries. You can get their dry grains, their waste produce, and actually use that to compound your feed for your bulls. Now, for animal production, let's look at it from different points of views. Most people just don't understand that the reason why the meat in Nigeria is so tough, people are importing meat from South Africa, which absolutely makes no sense to me. People don't understand that the major reason why our meat is so tough is because our cows are roaming. Take, for example, if somebody walks every morning, is walking around, like his muscle is going to be very tough. So that's one of the reasons why our meat in Nigeria is so tough. If we actually focus on things like fattening, which I started doing a few years ago, what I did was that I did an artificial insemination on 20 cows to see if there was any difference in the quality of the meat we get. I saw that, yes, the cows were bigger, but in general, did I see any improvements in the taste and anything in the meat? No. I think when it comes to animal production, let's stop thinking what everybody is doing. We should stop the Fulani ways of roaming cows around. That is a major problem. Let's start focusing on fattening. Let us start compounding feeds. Let's start using our waste. You can partner with different farmers to get their waste, especially people that process their cassava flour. You could take the peels of the cassava, mix it with different things to actually make a compounded feed. So let's start looking at production from, we have to start thinking outside the box now. We have to start using our waste and turn that waste into value. Nigerian breweries would give you their brewer's dry grain waste for free, as long as you take a certain amount. So now, especially in animal production, because like a lot of people think I just focus on crops. What we're trying to do now is that we're trying to actually introduce proper fattening into the system. We are tagging our bulls, we're weighing them, they're going through a gates. Once they go through a gates, now we actually want to start weighing each cow every single day, or each bull every single day. These are the things that we need to start doing in animal production. Animal production, the way we've been doing it is way backwards. We need to start thinking outside the box. So if you're going into animal production, I would tell you to start looking at fattening. How can you use those waste materials from different farmers? Farmers have waste, and let's take that waste to use to feed our livestock and actually focus on fattening of livestock. We should stop doing it the same way that everybody's doing it, buying cows, giving it to one Fulani man to take them grazing. Let's stop that. Let's start looking at fattening. And I believe the animal production of any farmer would increase.
Thank you very much, Shola. Thank you. In addition to that, I also think it's very important for people to know that even how you kill the cow is very important. So if the cow is like scared and tough, it keeps the meat, the muzzle is like it's really tough. So that's really important. One of the key things that a lot of people don't talk about. The next question is from Farouk Suleiman. I have access to cocoa, cashew, and mushroom farms. How do I get my produce into this digital technology, these digital platforms? I think Oyeka, that's questions for you. So how can they access these platforms to sell their produce?
Oh, to access the platform to sell their produce. I think right now, what we have, it's going to So on November 14th, we're making it public, the platform public, so people can access. November 14th is our 40th anniversary. And so it will be generally in the public for everybody to access, and you can sell from there. But right now, if you want to sell on the platform, you will need to send in your details to us. And so you send details to info@farmcrowdy.com. The aggregation and trading business team will then engage with you to understand the commodities you have, to understand the location, to get to see if any of our aggregation centers are close to you or any of our partner aggregation centers are close to you, so that we can do some quality assurance on the commodity before we list it on the platform for buyers to now see that this commodity is available. So between now and November 14th, you can send your details of this to info@farmcrowdy.com, and 14 to be able to access. So whether you're selling chickens, you're selling cows, or you're now selling crops, you will be able to, and then we connect you with the right buyers.
Thank you, Yeka. Thank you. The next question is for Shola from Mr. Ifeanyi. I'm having a challenge with the taste of both dairy and beef after it's been stored in my cool room for preservation. Customers complain about it when it's defrosted for use. What can I do about it?
Okay. You said after it's been defrosted, right?
Yes.
Now that's also a problem. When you freeze, you defrost, of course it loses taste. And also the most important part is, as you said, how is it been slaughtered? How is it been stored? Are you stored at the right temperature? How clean is your cold room as well? Because all these things play a major role. If you have a cold room that is not clean, you have fungal infections in there without even seeing them. You have different types of mold in there. It affects the taste of all these things. When it comes to milk production, the most important part of the milk collection is, of the milking process is actually the collection. A lot of people don't understand that if you don't disinfect the, not nipples, I think they're called something else. If you don't disinfect them properly, it changes the taste of the milk. If you don't disinfect your hands, it changes the quality of the milk. I would share information with a dairy farmer that I know is always willing to teach people. His name is Mr. Suraj Ajiboye. I learned a lot from him. It's called Smart Farms. Now, there are lots of things that actually contribute to the loss of taste of meat: storage, transportation, freezing, and defrosting, collection of the milk to how is it being collected? Is it being stored in a stainless steel canister? All these things matter. If you collect milk and you store it in plastic, it changes the taste of the milk. That's why when you go to foreign countries, their milk is stored in either glass or a plastic that is HDPE. It's not every type of milk, it's not every type of plastic that you can store your milk in. You should not store your milk in PET because it changes the taste of the milk. So there are lots of factors in this. These are just a few things. When you collect your milk and you store it, are you storing it in plastic or are you storing it in a stainless steel canister? These are all the things that you can do to change and improve the quality of your produce.
Thank you very much, Shola. There's a question on marketing, marketing being a major concern, and someone invested in farming but nowhere to sell it. What I would advise you, I would answer that. What I would advise you is get in touch with the association, and from the association, you get target markets on where to sell your produce. It's also very important to know where you're selling your produce before you just invest into any crop. One of the questions I have is for the government, which is the minister and Dr. Saleh, the governor. One of the challenges that we have is the security issue associated with kidnapping herdsmen. As a young cassava farmer, I've lost all my farms to cattle rears, and I'm still yet to recover from the shock, both financially and fear of mindset. What's the government doing in terms of security? Dr. Saleh? Dr. Saleh, are you with us?
Yes, thank you very much. I think the issue of insecurity presently is among the major challenges facing not only the agricultural sector, but also many other sectors of the Nigerian economy. There has been huge level of displacements and difficulty of access to farmlands, including even private sector investors, not only smallholder farmers. Again, the relationship or the intercommunity relationships between farming and pastoral communities in many areas have deteriorated, mainly due to weak leadership at community levels and the fact that there has been mismanagement and poor understanding of the dynamics of resource use, resource governance, and issues that have to do with access to resources. And these have ultimately contributed in many of these challenges. Again, you find out that with increasing level of cultivation and more people going to the land, it means less and less land is available for free grazing by pastoralists, for open grazing by pastoralists, which has always been the traditional ways of managing the traditional livestock. The government have been quite concerned and has been doing a lot. And you all know the National Livestock Transformation Plan, which the government has formulated. And even now, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is working on an innovative platform under the agricultural policy that will be launched very soon to integrate peace building, incorporation or integration of crops and livestock production into the entire ecosystem and balancing relationships between pastoral and farming communities. And like other speakers have said, the concept that livestock production is exclusive to a certain socio-economic or socio-cultural group is part of those things that we want to see addressed by increasing private sector participation, by expanding participation of all segments of the Nigerian society into the agricultural production system. This will help us to address many of the narratives that is driving some of these conflicts. So basically, we want to see strengthened community institutions, increased level of cooperation between farming and pastoral communities to address some of these drivers of misunderstanding between the two rural resource users. So this is really what we are doing at the moment, and we do hope that very soon these challenges will come to pass. Well, on the security aspect, which is much more worrisome, I think the security agencies are working on that, and we are looking forward to more robust engagement with various stakeholders.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Saleh. Thank you. We're running out of time. Lolo, I just wanted you to answer this question, a no or yes answer, because we don't have time for this, sorry. Do you have any interventions targeting women poultry farmers? Yes or no? And we have to wrap it up, sorry.
Do we have any women?
Interventions targeting women poultry farmers?
Oh, of course, yes. Like I said, we have a women, special women dedicated fund, a desk in Bank of Industry that addresses all the needs, the financial needs of women across all stratas of the businesses, including poultry. Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Additionally, they can focus on the Bank of Agriculture.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for the interesting conversation. We're happy to hear. If you have any questions, you can contact each panelist separately or individually. Please can you please share your email address in the Q&A session if you can. Next week's masterclass is October 14. And the theme for that is the resilient small business, a stakeholder and crisis management perspective. The link for the masterclass will be sent by email and SMS to those who have registered via the website. You can also register, or you can visit the website by www.mtnbusiness.com/Revv program, and that is REVV PROGRAMME. So you probably get the link by email if you're registered for this or you're part of, if you will get the link by email. Remember, those who registered for the Revv program and attended the masterclass, they have a chance to be showcased as the business coach of the day. So MTN will showcase you as a business coach of the day. So you have an opportunity to be showcased, where we showcase the SME across all social media. So you definitely want to register, tell more people about this program so they can showcase their businesses. There's also an opportunity to be named as one of the Yellow 200 who will benefit from productivity support, market access, advisory services, among others, and much more. I just want to say thank you. And there's also the opportunity to register. So the opportunity to be named as the Yellow 200 will be amazing because, you know, the target market and the viewers is priceless. So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It's been amazing. If you have any questions, please just send a message to MTN. And thank you, MTN, for putting this together. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and bye-bye to all.
Thank you very much, Wendy, and thank MTN for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, and best of wishes to all.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, MTN, and thank you, Wendy, for being a fantastic moderator.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Yewandi. Well done.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.